Today, I'm going to have a look at world events that are currently happening according to astrology. Now, there's two charts that I've looked at particularly, well, three, but two. The New Year chart, Vedic New Year chart, known as Chaitra shukla, which was on April, let me just check, April the 1st this year. And the conjunction of Mars, Uranus, Rahu that took place at the end of either the 31st or the 1st of July or 1st of August, approximately. When was that? 1st of August in my region. Looking at the chart here, and so I'm looking at that and the Chaitra shukla. Now, what I noticed, the Chaitra shukla is the new moon in Pisces, calculated for sidereal horoscope, and you can calculate it for any region. Usually in India they use it, and they probably calculate it for Delhi. And they, a lot of astrologers would predict what happens in India for the year from that. I played around with it and looked at different ascendants to see what it would bring. And for Taipei, the ascendant was 27 Cancer. For Washington, 13 Sagittarius. And Beijing, 27 Cancer. Delhi, was it 27 Gemini, Canberra 12 Leo. Now, in the chart with Taipei and China at 27 Cancer, we find a conjunction of Mars and Saturn exactly on the descendant, which is the 7th house cusp. Mars at 25 Capricorn, Saturn at 27. So Saturn's sitting right on it, and Mars is 2 degrees off. So we've got a malefic conjunction of Mars and Saturn sitting on that descendant. Now, that same conjunction happens again in 2024, but it doesn't occur in 25, 23, or what other years have I done? Or 26 or 27. Is it 26 or 27? However, 27 does have Mars, Jupiter opposite Pluto, but not that close. Now, but it doesn't go in on the 7th house cusp for China for any of those other years. Other countries I haven't checked if it falls on there. I haven't changed it around to see where it falls. But if it falls on the 7th house, and possibly the 4th house would be bad too, of any other countries or regions, it won't be good at that time, that conjunction. Now, that particular conjunction was the conjunction that I've read that other astrologers predicted that World War II started when Mars and Saturn sits on the 7th cusp. Whether it was Hitler's chart or Germany's chart, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but that was the configuration to start World War II. Now, a while back, I also read, in 2020, there was a conjunction of Mars, Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn, and medieval astrologers predicted that conjunction, but they had it in Aquarius, was the start of the Great Plague. So it's interesting when you look back at historical things to see what previous astrologers have used to predict events. So seeing that conjunction there for both Taipei and China from the Beijing and Taipei is where I calculate it from, is quite concerning, and it doesn't happen again in the next few years for that particular chart. However, we do have Pluto moseying up to China's ascendant, and it hits it in the 2026 and 2027 Chaitra shuklas. It hits the ascendant of China. Now, China, ascendant and moon. China has moon at 10 degrees Capricorn, ascendant at 12. That's calculated for 1st of October 49 Beijing. That's the Chinese national chart. Now, but Pluto going over the ascendant is massive power struggles and big changes. And as it goes towards the ascendant, the changes will be taking place, but we may not see all the results until later. Now, I don't think I'm doing the best video here. I'm moving this around a bit. However, I keep putting off doing this until I get more technical stuff, and then I'm not getting around to doing it. So if I can get this up today, I'll do it, and I'll do a better one later. But I just think it's worth sharing this now. Now, what else have I got to look at here? So definitely it looks, and has looked, it looks like the situation, which we've already seen escalating in the news, but it's going to escalate further. At the same time, I'm not sure. I should check if that Mars-Saturn aspects any planets in Australia and America, because I don't know that they'll be involved. Looking at this chart here, I'd say from the Chaitra shukla, it falls in this second house of the Chaitra shukla for America. So it would be Mars would be the sixth ruler. That's army, I guess. And the 12th house is arms. No, fifth house. Sorry, fifth and 12th ruler. Yeah, 12th is army. Fifth house would be armed forces. Maybe they'll give some armed help, but I don't think they'll be open. They'll be deeply involved. But they could send some armed forces with. 12th house is also secretly, so they may not do it openly. But they will give some military aid, but probably not openly support. For Australia, 12 Leo, this falls in the 6th house. I'm going to think about it because it's 6 houses, armed forces. Yeah, 7th house is open conflict, which is definitely what looks like is going to happen between Taipei and China. But 6th house is the armed forces, and army in hospitals is 12th house. So I'll have a look at that. So that's what's happening. When I originally did this chart 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't find the Chinese president's chart. It wasn't on. I couldn't find it online, but I have found his date of birth now. So I've had a look at it, and it's a little bit concerning. I mean, he's got an exact by transit opposition of Saturn to his Pluto, which means he'll use his own power and position for his he potentially can for his own self-promotion, and it will lead to disastrous consequences. He's running a Mars period. I've done a midday chart for him, as I don't have the time. Done it midday, he'd have just started Mars-Mercury. His Mars is afflicted and afflicting other things. He's got the dangerous aspect natally between Mars and Saturn. His Saturn is in Virgo. He's got Sun, Uranus, Mars, Mercury in Gemini, and he's got Moon, Ketu, Pluto in Cancer. Now, Vedic astrologers seeing this will recognise, whoops, let's see if I've got this, will recognise a couple of things. Now, Mars Saturn has got quite a very bad reputation for wars, massacres, deaths of people, calamities, epidemics, and all sorts of things. So that Mars Saturn aspect this year and in 2 years can result in that type of thing. And it will depend what region it is and where it falls in that house. Like 6th house will be health. 7th house is open conflict. 4th house is earthquakes and mass calamities. So you'd look at it from that point of view. So the president, Z, I don't think he's that stable from his chart. He's got Moon conjunct Ketu and Pluto. Moon, Pluto, they can be just power struggles. Moon, Ketu, very close within a degree of each other. Mental instability. Hitler had it, and it led to his committing suicide. But it is an unstable way of thinking. His Mercury, which is intellect, is conjunct Mars, Uranus, and Sun, and aspected the full Vedic aspect of Saturn. And Saturn and Mars are in mutual aspect. That is quite so 2 malefic aspects on Mercury, and Mars is not happy in Gemini, it's in detriment, would be quite it would create a violent mind and power and tendency with that, and Moon Ketu, paranoia. So he had a violent mind, paranoid thoughts, and at the moment he is hungry for power with that Saturn opposite his Pluto. So he's got a number of things going on there, but I would say he's not going to make a balanced judgment on this. He's not going to be logical, sane, and what's good for the people. It's going to be rather illogical. From a Vedic point of view, there's a couple of factors you look for to see how the mental state of a person. If I had an ascendant, I'd be looking at the 4th and 5th house and the planets ruling those. As I don't, I've looked at Moon and Sun and the current Dasa Lord, but I've also, the other 2 main factors are Mercury and Moon. Moon is more emotional mind and Mercury is intellectual mind. If they're both afflicted, it's mental instability. And I hope I don't get killed for this thing, but he's bloody mad. Sorry. I wouldn't trust them to make a sensible judgment. And what can help these, if those things are afflicted, if you get the aspect of Venus and Jupiter, it can nullify or, ameliorate the bad effects. So the 4th house from Moon is okay, that's not afflicted. The 4th ruler is Venus, it's aspecting its own house, that's nice. The 5th house from Moon has the aspect of Jupiter, now that's nice as well. However, it also gets the aspect of Saturn, and the ruler of the 5th house, which is intellect from Moon, is in the 12th house from Moon, which isn't good, and is aspected by Saturn and conjunct Uranus. So intellectually, he's quite violent. His 4th house from Moon isn't bad. But Jupiter's in Taurus and Venus is in Aries, and neither of them give helpful aspects to Mercury or Moon. There's nothing helping it there. So I think he's probably going to take angry and irrational and ambitious thoughts rather than peaceful and well-considered. What would be the best long-term outcome? I don't think you'll be thinking in that way. However, I mean, in his chart, he must have Raja Yogas to ascend to the level of power he has, which would put the Raja Yogas that do that most effectively, I think. Well, there's a couple of different ways, but one way is if a lord of an angle conjuncts a lord of a trine in either a trinal or angular house. So he's probably got that. And Mercury, being aspected by Saturn, may be good for some ascendants in that sense, if they're both, one's a trine and one's an angular lord. Say, if you had Virgo ascendant, Saturn would be the 5th lord in the 1st house, and it's aspecting the ascendant and the 10th lord. That would be a Raja Yoga, and it will elevate him to power. So that's possible. I'm not going to conjecture what his ascendant is, but that's a possibility. And then for that ascendant, Jupiter would be aspecting and helping the ascendant. So that would give him power. Yeah, I'm not going to guess on that. The other thing that has happened that's quite significant, which I've been looking into, and rather than wait and look into it more, which I tend to do, I'm going to comment on it now. It took place on the one I've got in my local area in Australia. It takes place August 1st, 2022, 6-something p.m. at night probably. And you've got Mars, Uranus. Oh yes, that was a Mars Rahu aspect, but Mars, Uranus, Rahu. No, that would have been the Mars Rahu conjunction. But Mars, Uranus, Rahu all conjunct at 24 Aries, and sidereally, and it would have been in a trine to the moon that day at 25 Leo, and sextile Venus. Now, Vedic aspects, those aren't full aspects, they're partial aspects. And Jupiter would have been giving a full Vedic aspect to the Sun in an exact degree, which isn't bad there. But the Mars, Rahu, Uranus aspect does take place. How often they conjunct is Rahu takes 18 years to go round the zodiac, 360 degrees. Uranus takes, I think it's 200 and something, 48, 200 and something, right? And so it takes about 7 years in each sign. So it will probably about every 18 or 20, and Rahu goes backwards, so it would probably be 16 or 17 years they conjunct in different signs. However, it's about probably 84 years. Now, hang on, what I'm doing? 84 years Uranus takes to go around. So every 84 years, you get Rahu then, and you get Uranus then. Maybe Rahu will be there as well. Yeah, I'm really going to need to redo this. I'm either going to retry that now, or I'm going to post this and then do a better one. Yeah, Rahu is conjunct Uranus, and yeah, every 84 years. So about 36, they conjuncted in Aries. Now, Aries is ruled by Mars, so it's going to be more of an aggressive, assertive, creative sign, in attaining new, things forward. So in history, we've seen it, 1936, we all know the rise of the Nazis. At the time of the gunpowder plot in England, when Cortez was having a major battle with the Aztecs or Mayans, when Joan of Arc was fighting a battle, so there's been major historical events of that type. Now, some of astrologers have said that I think it was 300 BC, is at the Library of Alexandria or something was taking place. A major historical event when it took place. I think the three were conjunct together there. But I've found them. Now, some of these events, I think Rahu was at an angle to, I'm not sure, I have to look. That's why I said I would prefer to do it again, but if I delay, I won't say anything. So those events have been involved with that conjunction. Now, so it is major changes, and this particular chart, all the planets were aspecting the sun, and the sun is leaders, and it led me to think there'll probably be major changes of leaders with this event. Now, this particular conjunction looks like it triggered a lot of the current world events, like set the China thing off. Why? I'd have to look and see in China's chart and a couple of other charts to see if it aspected. It does, yeah, actually it does. I'm looking at it now. 24 degrees Aries, and China has Mars 21 Cancer, Pluto 25 Cancer, and I'm just seeing, and Venus at 26 Libra, and Rahu at 23 Pisces. So it looks like it's triggered the Mars-Pluto conjunction. And what period is, well, China's currently running Mercury period, which is in moon, and Mercury is more trade. It's in the 9th house of China, so that doesn't immediately make me think, oh, war, but it rules the 6th house, which could be the army. Xi Jinping, on the other hand, the Chinese president, he's running Mars. So he's running either, well, if he's exactly at midday, Mars Mercury, otherwise Mars K2 or Mars Saturn. His Mars is in the star of Rahu, which isn't helpful for being peaceful. So I think from his chart you could say, look, he's thinking aggressive. Look, Mars is a planet of very assertive action, very energetic, but it can also be war, surgery, and a whole heap of things along those lines. So Mars does look at a lot of those things. Now, I don't know, last time I tried to do one of these, I couldn't get it to upload it. So I'm not going to talk any longer. I'll go into it into more detail. This is really rubbish. Sorry. I'm not keeping it steady. I'm going to get a phone hander. But yeah, it doesn't look very good for world situations. It very much looks from that chart, in effect, that China looks like it's got to take Taiwan. And I don't... we may lend military support, with other countries, but I don't see them being directly involved in the war from that chart. Because for Taipei, that sits exactly on the house of open enemies, on the cusp of the 7th, but it doesn't for Australia or Washington. I haven't looked at all other countries, but I would imagine, or Delhi. What does it fall for Delhi? Gemini in the 8th house for this year. So, it's Saturn, Mars, epidemics, open war, disasters, national disasters, you know, all sorts of disasters can take place. So it doesn't have, the reason it's war, it's on that seventh cusp. But for other countries, if it's in the fourth house, and probably the eighth house, it's national disasters of some type. Anyway,